When you think back on Breath of the Wild, what do you remember? Sure, the puzzles and combat were amazing, but I bet the first thing that pops into your head is the feeling of standing on a cliff and staring out at that endless, living world. That moment still hits me. Even now, I'll replay the game and I'll get teary-eyed just watching it. And the wild thing is, this game is 8 years old, but somehow it hasn't aged a bit. And that's because they didn't chase photorealism or aim to make pretty graphics. They built an art style that's timeless. Something that sits between a painting, an anime, and a storybook. After Skyward Sword, the Zelda team kept hearing one big piece of feedback. We want to explore the spaces between the main areas. And that got producer Eiji Aonuma thinking, what if Zelda wasn't just a linear adventure? What if Link and the world weren't separate, but worked together? What if we redesigned the entire expectation of what a Zelda game really is? That dream became Breath of the Wild. They looked at games like Skyrim and Shadow of the Colossus and asked, how do we reimagine Zelda from the ground up? The art team even had their own slogan, refreshing and full-flavored. Every blade of grass, every stone, every character needed to feel alive and unique, unlike anything they had made in a Zelda game before. Realistic graphics age fast. Just look at any PS3 cinematic masterpiece and tell me it doesn't look like an uncanny wax museum now. Most realistic games age badly and they're bogged down by muddy textures and clunky animations. But Breath of the Wild, still gorgeous. And that's no accident, it's because they didn't chase realism. Now, if you tell someone that Breath of the Wild's art style is similar to Wind Waker, then you're probably going to get the most intense eyebrow raise of your life, but it's true. The art director Satoru Takizawa said that the final decision only took a minute. Hidemaru Fujibayashi, the director, met with Satoru and literally pointed at a Wind Waker screenshot and said, this right here. They had discussed and debated using many different art styles, but the longevity of Wind Waker's art helped them confidently decide on that style in the end. One reason why so many people can't see the similarities between Wind Waker and Breath of the Wild is because they think that cel shading means cartoony. Nope, it's a shading technique featuring harsh shadows, bold highlights, and sharp color shifts. It's designed to make 3D computer graphics appear to be flat by using less shading color, and it gives the render a paper-like texture. It originally came from 2D animation, and it's actually still used in anime today. If you compare Link in Twilight Princess to Link in Breath of the Wild, you'll see the difference immediately. One has shadows that look airbrushed, the other looks sharp and bold. This isn't just a stylistic choice, it can also have a big impact on how a game ages. As technology advances and consoles are able to handle more polygons, complicated textures, and shaders, the games that tried to be as realistic as possible in the past just won't look like the newer and more advanced forms of realism that we'll have now. And here's the genius part. Cel shading makes the world easier to read. In realistic games, devs often highlight climbable ledges in yellow paint because everything else blends together. There are just so many details and so much visual noise that it's really hard to focus and pick out ladders or signs that are taking you to your next destination. Breath of the Wild avoids that problem entirely. The cel shading simplifies detail, it clears out all that visual noise, and it guides your eye naturally. The art direction from Wind Waker, well, immersive, engaging, and timeless, also has an unrealistic portrayal of the world. This is helpful for some things, like how unrealistic it is to chop down a tree with a sword and spawn in a bundle of firewood, or tossing wheat, sugar, and fruit into a pot and then somehow getting a slice of cake. But in other areas, it makes it feel far too cartoony and stylized. This is why the team opted to choose different character silhouettes and soften the saturated colors and clean lines with painterly details and subtle gradients so it leaned closer to being believable. Instead of blasting your eyes with hyper-saturated colors, Breath of the Wild goes for a softer approach. Think earth tones that feel calm and organic. A tone is when you add gray to a color so it's not the brightest, most saturated version of the hue, it creates a more subtle appearance. The color palette uses natural greens, browns, reds, and blues. This choice does two important things. First, it creates a sense of calm. The muted tones make the world feel peaceful and inviting and never overwhelming. You can look across the fields of Hyrule and feel that sense of serenity and openness, like the world is just inviting you to explore. Second, it allows important details to stand out. When developers were illustrating the environment, which was mainly the green hills of Hyrule Field, they found that Link's green tunic was getting lost. Hyrule Field was the biggest landmark for the team to design around. It determined everything from Link's tunic to the colors of creatures, like bokoblins and the dragons. Senior lead artist Yoshiyuki Oyama said that Link wearing blue clothes appeared pretty early on because the blue stood out against the backgrounds that they were producing. And this light blue grew to be the pop of saturated color in the palette that acted as an important signal to the players on everything from shrines to the HUD. It can also be used as a symbolic part of the storytelling that connects Link to the Sheikah technology, royal family, and his other champions. Another important color is orange, the complement or the opposite color to blue on the color wheel. This color is great for signaling incomplete shrines or fun little Korok puzzles for you to solve. Nintendo basically color wheel tricked us into paying attention to details in this game. Altogether, it's a color palette that feels both grounded and magical. It gives the world a sense of harmony while still highlighting the things that developers want you to notice. The art director Satoru Takizawa often gets asked why the art style changes for each Zelda game in the franchise, and his response is that they want to express the unique spirit of that particular game and create a world that will be exciting for players to jump into. In this case, they wanted a world that was approachable and demanded to be explored fully. The art team didn't just look at other games, they looked at impressionist on plein air paintings. The idea wasn't to copy nature perfectly, but to capture the feeling of it. Impressionism and on plein air paintings capture natural light and color in landscapes to evoke the feeling that a landscape gives you. You're not supposed to exactly replicate it, rather, you should make the viewer get an impression. The artists want to make you feel nature, rather than just hang a pretty picture up on your wall and admire it every now and then. This inspiration makes the environment feel just as calming as a Monet painting. That's why the game feels dreamy, atmospheric, and like an idealized version of nature. It's not about detail, it's about mood, and that lines up perfectly with the devs' goals. Link isn't just passing through this world, he belongs in it, which explains why he's constantly chopping down trees, cooking questionable meals, and terrorizing bokoblins. He's truly one with nature. So, let's be real. Nintendo isn't exactly known for pushing raw power. The Switch was never going to match PlayStation or Xbox graphically, and they really didn't design it to anyway. Nintendo's strategy focuses on affordability, portability, and the unique gameplay experiences that they can offer. But this also means that they can't go wild with polygons and textures. So, what do you do when your console can't push photorealism? You lean into style. By choosing painterly, cel-shaded, stylized art, Nintendo didn't just hide the hardware limits, they future-proofed the game. That's why Breath of the Wild looks just as good today as it did in 2017, even if you're still playing on your dusty old Wii U.
DK's in, this is gonna be bananas.
So, why does Breath of the Wild's art still hold up after all these years? Because it never tried to be realistic. It's not about pixel count or hardware power, it's about atmosphere and clarity. Breath of the Wild gave us bold shapes, painterly textures, and colors that guide our eyes and our emotions. Standing on a cliff in Hyrule doesn't just look good, it feels good. And honestly, I'd argue that's even harder to pull off. But what about you? When you think back on Breath of the Wild, what's the moment that visually stuck with you the most? Let me know in the comments, I'd love to hear your Hyrule memories. Finally, this is my first YouTube video and I'd love to make more content about art and video games. Please subscribe, I have a big goal of hitting 1,000 subscribers and it would mean so much to me if we hit it. Thanks so much for watching and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!